What lies within and beyond the unknown regions of space? The Star Wars galaxy is an incredibly detailed world with thousands of unique planets, species, cultures, and force wielders. Characters in the mythos are pulled from every corner of the known galaxy. But while the galaxy as we know it is extremely large and complex, there is an even more daunting land beyond the Star Wars galaxy that we all know. And it is now more important than ever to understand what lies beyond thanks to the Ahsoka series, and exploring not only the Star Wars galaxy that we know, but also brand new galaxies from the mythos. The unknown regions is broadly defined as the uncharted space beyond the outer rim, and does not have any known hyperspace lanes that can be used to travel to it. Hyperspace lanes is what connects the entire galaxy itself, and since none exist in the unknown regions due to a mysterious barrier, traveling there is nearly impossible. Nearly. The outer edge of the unknown regions contains a mysterious hyperspace barrier, and little is known about what lies beyond this edge. But let's discuss what we do know, mainly from legends. We will also be talking about the first two episodes of Ahsoka, so spoilers ahead. One quick distinction to make is that in the Ahsoka series, Magistrate Morgan Elsbeth seems to be targeting an entirely separate galaxy or star cluster. The unknown regions entails the space beyond the galaxy that we know, but the inclusion of an entirely new galaxy may or may not fall beyond the unknown regions, depending on how the show plays out. For this reason, we're going to talk about some of the most powerful forces from both the unknown regions and beyond in order to best cover what we might expect to see moving forward. Charting the unknown regions has always been difficult, but that doesn't mean that it cannot be done. Shortly after the rise of the Empire, the colonization corporation known as Anawa ventured into the unknown regions to find other habitable planets. They then used these planets to relocate Imperial refugees. Perhaps the most well-known body of power in the unknown regions was known as the Chiss Ascendancy, best known for producing the likes of Grand Admiral Thrawn. But the Chiss are far from the only civilizations in the unknown territories. Alongside them are the likes of the C-Ruvi Imperium, the Vagali, the Killix colony, and the Empire of the Hand. These societies worked essentially as a galaxy of their own, with very little communication or trade with anyone in the current Star Wars galaxy that we know. They didn't fall under the jurisdiction of the Republic, the Empire, or any other governing body that destroys most of the worlds that we see in Star Wars. Let's begin with the C-Ruvi Imperium, which was ruled by a lifelong monarch by the name of Shriftut, who demonstrated absolute control over the Imperium society. The Shriftut, however, had to be elected by both the Council of Elders as well as the Conclave, who existed in consistent struggle with one another, each wanting to elect a different official. The Shriftut, in addition to ruling over the Shi-Ruvi, was also tasked with preventing a war between the Elders and the Conclave, otherwise known as the religious authority. While the military of this people was formidable and was among the mightiest in the unknown regions, the C-Ruvi deeply feared death away from their own sacred star cluster, not wanting to perish from beyond the region that they knew. For these reasons, their military was mostly defensive in nature, and if they were left alone, they tended not to seek any conflict with outside forces, and for thousands of years, they never drifted beyond their known barriers and cluster. The society of the Vagali, however, were known for being nomadic slavers and tyrants who drifted from one sector to another in search of conquest. They were perhaps most well known as the arch nemesis of the Chiss, and the two routinely did battle with one another. Grand Admiral Thrawn himself was even responsible for defeating legions of them in battle with his forces, and over the years, the Chiss became intimately aware of how the Vagali operated. After their defeat at the hands of the Chiss, however, they retreated into some of the darkest corners of the region in order to rebuild their forces, lying in wait. Part of this entailed creating an alliance with the Vong, the Vong, who were in the midst of preparing an invasion of the galaxy that we know from the Star Wars lore. The Vong were known by even the Chiss as far outsiders, as they originated outside the known galaxy and beyond the reach of even the Chiss Ascendancy. The origin point and current whereabouts of the Vong are arguably the farthest known point at this period in the timeline. The Vong were sentient humanoids who were known for wiping out over 300 trillion life forms during their invasion of a galaxy. And it's even been theorized that Palpatine created the Empire as a unified defense force against a potential invasion from the Vong forces. If we are to measure threats beyond the known regions, then we would be hard-pressed to find anything more dangerous and fearsome than the Vong. as they could potentially pose the most serious threat to the galaxy. Not only are the Vong masochists who embrace the sensation of pain, but they were unable to be sensed through the Force, and were even resilient to several Force-based attacks. Only the strongest Force sensitives in the galaxy, such as those from the Skywalker bloodline, could touch the Vong with the Force. This immediately put the Jedi of this era on their heels, but they persisted nonetheless under Luke. The Vong lived in constant pain as part of their religion, grafted organs for themselves, sacrificed limbs, and became incredibly jaded and resilient warriors. Their warrior culture is perhaps the most dangerous known threat to the galaxy, beyond even the Empire or the Sith. But of course, this is open for debate and interpretation. Some of the other most well-known forces in the unknown regions, however, were the Killix colony and the Empire of the Hand. The Killix in particular were actually once native to Alderaan of the Core Worlds, and existed thousands of years before the planet was ever populated by humans. Many of them were, however, taken as slaves and laborers by the race of Celestials, who spread the Killix across the galaxy to work in mines from across the system. What's interesting to note is that at this point, even the Daughter and the Son, the two living embodiments of the light and the dark side of the Force, had colonies of Killix at their disposal to do their work, with the Daughter and the Son being descendants of the Celestials. Force travel and intergalactic conflict, they found themselves removed from the galaxy and in the unknown regions, where the remnants of them would build into the Killix colony. Some of the Killix survived in the unknown regions, but this colony became one of the more unified collections of survivors from this race. The Empire of the Hand, however, was a much more recent development constructed by none other than Thrawn himself, as a shadow of the Empire to pacify his sector and rule in the unknown regions. Having taken notes from Lord Sidious's regime, Thrawn elected to create a unified front which would not only subjugate his immediate neighbors, but would put up a firm resistance against the Vong in the event of an invasion which ultimately did happen in Legends. In canon, we know that Grand Admiral Thrawn was exiled to the unknown regions just a few years before the fall of the Empire, with Ahsoka taking place roughly 6 to 9 years later. And as we learned from the latest episode, Thrawn is not in the unknown regions, but a separate galaxy entirely, likely building his own canonical adaptation of the Empire of the Hand, and maybe even the rise of the First Order. Now that Morgan Elsbeth is attempting to create a bridge between the two galaxies, it's important to wonder if something else besides Thrawn might come through that door once opened. And if they are not alone, then what might be joining them? Will this bridge lead to an invasion by the Vong, or will it allow some of the characters we know to explore the unknown regions and new galaxies? We will all have to wait and see. But stay tuned to the channel and the archives, as we will be delving deep into the lore of the unknown regions in the days to come, as well as keeping you updated on everything Ahsoka. As always, my friends, may the Force be with you, and thank you for visiting the archives.